Deport, deport, deport. The government is in a huge mess after an illegal migrant hotel turned out to be, well, illegal. The Bell Hotel in Epping didn't have planning permission for use as a dumping ground for illegal migrants, and now it will have to close. Well, there are supposedly around 210 migrant hotels housing about 32,000 illegals. Reform has said they'll legally challenge the use of every hotel in all 12 of their council areas.
I said on May the 2nd, after we swept the board in the local elections, we committed that reform councils who have planning power would use every tool at their disposal to resist this appalling situation with migrant hotels and houses of multiple occupancy. That is what we're doing. We've already got processes in flight with West Northamptonshire and Durham, for example.
Two Labour councils getting involved now, actually, the Wirral and Tamworth. They're also challenging the Home Office. The Tories are already challenging one in Broxbourne. One migrant at the Bell Hotel in Epping, so it's been the centre of all this furore. Well, look, he just had a polite request for the locals.
They've got a message to the residents of Epping and the local area.
Yeah, I would say please give us a second chance. Please treat us the same way you treated us before the incident.
Oh, nope. It's not just a second chance, is it, mate? Labour have four options as far as I see it. Option number one, appeal and go to legal war with the British public. Option number two, move potentially 32,000 illegals into HMOs. Three, admit that they were wrong about Rwanda. Or four, deport, deport, deport. I think they should pick option number four. And don't let them tell you that it can't be done. Germany is sending illegals back to Afghanistan. No qualms about that over there. The government today announced a returns deal with Iraq. If they try to put them in HMOs, it will be the end of this government. Portsmouth City Council discovered last week that 55 rental properties were being used to house at least 3 asylum seekers in each of them. And now Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has today written to Yvette Cooper to call for her to rule out using houses of multiple occupancy. It's game over. Get the planes on the runway. Bye-bye. Cheerio. Thanks for the memories. Off you pop. Let's get the views of my panel. Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. If you don't mind, Adam, I'm going to come to you first on this because you obviously have been quite instrumental to what's been going on around the Epping area there. So your initial reaction to that verdict, first and foremost?
Unbelievable. Fantastic. My question would be, why didn't they do it before? This council have been in a long time. Why was this not known? How can you not know that these are trading illegally? I mean, look, I thank the council for doing that. That's great. But they did it because we hit the streets. We was not stopping. All eyes were on Epping. We were ground zero on the migrant hotel situation. And you know, there were hundreds of people that said we will be here twice a week if it doesn't close. They had no option but to do this. If they didn't do this, they would have had to do something else. The Home Office would have had to buckle. Because at the end of the day, let me remind viewers, I've spoke to parents whose daughters have been harassed for their Snapchats by migrants, have been harassed and had dirty language towards them in the high road. Women that have been flashed in the forest, joggers that have been violently spoke to. This was a problem, a massive problem, and the locals have had enough. You can label us far right all you want. We're just worried parents. I live 2 miles from there. I've got a family member who goes to St John's School. Right? We were not dropping this. This does not deserve to be happening in any town in the UK. This is a disaster for this country, and something needs to stop.
Well, there we go. Obviously, some of those things are allegations, but yeah, I must admit that I was being told very similar stuff yesterday when I was there as well. Mark, what does the government do now then?
Yeah.
So these list of options potentially for them to do.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it on the list of 4 options. And ultimately, we've got to get to your option 4 of deportations. Here's the problem, though, which I've said many times on this programme before. If you do not scrap the Human Rights Act and leave the European Convention on Human Rights, you are going to be held up in court by human rights lawyers endlessly before you get any plane off the runway. We know that. The Conservatives tried Rwanda, whether you think it was a great scheme or not. or a terrible scheme, but the courts blocked it. So you've got to get rid of that legal logjam. There's no way Labour are going to repeal the Human Rights Act or leave the ECHR, is there? There is potentially a fifth option. I was just looking this up, Patrick. You said move them into houses of multiple occupancy. I mean, I wonder whether we can quickly construct centres, holding pens, before we
like
change
Nightingale Hospital.
Well, I was just looking up, the London Nightingale Hospital was constructed in 7 days.
Yeah.
Right, if you put your mind to it, now I haven't got in mind exactly geographically where I'd place them, but obviously not in population centres like Epping, right? I would have thought if you put your mind to it, and if we could construct, we had the will to construct these Nightingale hospitals in a week, which obviously required quite complex medical equipment. These holding centres wouldn't require any of that. Maybe that's the short-term way of dealing with it, because each of your 1 to 3 options, Patrick, are a total catastrophe for the government.
Yeah, I mean, the government's in a right mess over this now, aren't they, Nina? And, you know, like I said, I think if you put them in houses of multiple occupancy, you're not going to be able to have security guards outside every single one of those houses. There's going to be huge issues with people in the local community. It was one of the big issues that reared its head in Ballymena, for example, and we saw how that kicked off, and we don't want that to take place over here. So what do they do? Because I think they're going to have to leave the ECHR and start deporting people, aren't they?
Well, they're not going to leave the ECHR, and it's not just that. It's the refugee status. We are legally required to look after people who arrive on our shores. We are legally required to do that. And the problem is, with social media, this has been so whipped up. It's been so that migrants, any kind of migrant, is demonised. And when you look at...
Look at the stats, Nina. Look at the sexual stats and sexual crimes.
Can I just point something out to you, Adam? The people who were arrested last year, I'm not equating them to the people who have been protesting outside any of the hotels, especially not in the Bell Hotel in Epping. I can see the women who are...
I know what you're going to say. We know their backgrounds. They're English. And anyone that decides to abuse women or children, I will call out and have nowhere near me. We do not know the history of these people.
You're putting words in my mouth. I'm not
I knew what you was going to say.
No, I wasn't going to say that.
Well, go on, let's go.
I was going to say the people last year after the riots, OK? The men who were arrested for the riots, 41% of them had either been charged or reported for domestic violence.
So you've just said exactly what I was going to say.
I was going to say, no, so...
Well, but that's the riots last year.
And we know we are not funding them.
Different kettle of
I'm
fish.
going to say, so you're saying they want to protect the women and children. They're not
They're rioters. They're not peaceful protesters.
I would pick you up a little bit on this point that we're tarring everybody with the same brush.
I'm not tarring with the same brush.
I don't think we are. The problem, I think...
I said deliberately, I'm not equating that.
But no, I meant about the migrant community. Right. I don't think people, and actually some of your Vox Pop, Patrick, rather reinforce my point, I don't think people have a problem with migrants coming here to work.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen any people complaining about, I don't know, a hedge fund manager moving to the City of London. You don't get very protests about that. You don't get many protests when a top football team signs a foreign star. And you don't get much protests, I think, if people are coming here to work in public services. The particular segment of the people coming in are those who are coming in entirely reliant on the state and are claiming asylum status,
but
we
then
are
we don't know
dubious
that they
about
could be working. The problem has always been, and still is,
we
have a very, very good idea that people, like the chap that we've just seen there, who's from Somalia, is not a secret hedge fund manager. Right?
No, but he could be something that's equally useful.
He can just about, no disrespect, can just about speak English. These people that are coming over on the dinghies are never going to generate anything for our treasury.
I mean, obviously he's not going to, but when he says give us a second chance, because his point was that we're not all the same. We had issues.
No, Patrick, I don't. I've always said the same. I don't want these people here. We have enough scumbags and thieves, rapists, paedophiles of our own to deal with. We know their history. We can deal with them. We have no.
They're all paedophiles and rapists.
They're not all.
No, but we are seeing multiple cases, court cases and arrests from asylum seekers. I have 2 daughters, and I want to know who these people are coming into our communities.
I understand that, but you cannot tar everybody with the same brush, which Adam
clearly,
is.
as a cohort, there's a problem, right? These people at the Bell Hotel in Epping have not made Epping a better, safer place.
No,
have
they've
they?
made it a worse place.
We don't know that
just
yet.
practically
Well, we
speaking now,
do.
look, we have got an idea. Just practically speaking now then, so you've got, I think it's the latest I saw reported was 19 local authorities are taking this legal action. Robert Jenrick has just decided to set up, I think along with Stephen Barrett, the barrister, this Lawyers for Borders thing as well, to try and get this challenge.
Yes, but what hypocrisy from Robert Jenrick.
Okay.
He was in charge of the hotels, wasn't
He
he?
wants to close down the Bell Hotel,
Well,
actually.
he did close down the Bell Hotel.
Yes, but before he was in charge of the hotels.
Practically, this government now is going to have to act very, very quickly because, according to Mark White, we're due a good week in the Channel next week, weather-wise as well, which could see close to 1,000 a day. If you can't put them in these hotels, and those hotels have to close within 2 weeks, if you're not going to press the deportation button, and you're not going to be able to find enough houses out there, I mean, it would be an unbelievable sin to start finding HMOs for all of these people.
And dangerous
They're
as
going to
well.
have to start with tent cities or something.
Well, do you think that they might go for my Nightingale idea?
Right, hold on.
The problem is you're going to need an endless, increasing number of them unless you've
that will
got a
be a
plan for
deterrent.
You have
deportation.
got to process them more quickly. That's the only
No,
way.
no, because all they do is they stamp them in, and then they get to stay whether or not they're stamped in or not. Greece
they
are
don't.
detaining and deporting. Why can't we do what Greece are doing?
Well, we might have to now.
Why cannot we? And I'll tell you why,
well,
because we've got a
because
human
they're
rights
trying-
lawyer as our Prime Minister.
They're
He's
trying
never going to do
You
this.
just said they've signed a deal with Iraq, for instance.
He's
That's-
never going to do it.
That they are. I mean, why
Never.
would you sign a deal with Iraq if you're not going to
So
send
you agree on the
Iraqis back?
deportation strategy?
Of course, deport people who are not entitled to be here.
And we've
Of
got to
course,
make those
I
decisions.
don't want
You
an
also
open
think,
borders policy.
and you also think we need to make those decisions quickly.
Yes,
Our
I
legal
do.
process is taking 18 months to reach
Well, I
a
do
decision.
wonder as well if
Ludicrous.
Keir Starmer is now, tonight, thinking, gosh, if only I had something like a Rwanda scheme.
America has just filled it up.
Because then you could at least
Rwanda
have some offshore...
was a gimmick that would never
Fine.
work.
But now, what we're going to do? Because we haven't got anywhere to send these people when they get here, and he could probably do with
It's
thinking,
going to
well, at
need to
least
be
we could...
bigger and grander than the Rwanda
Rwanda
scheme.
on steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to go to our hospitals and see they are all staffed by immigrants.
They're not illegal immigrants,
Not
Nina.
asylum
No, but we
seekers.
don't know
Not
that.
asylum
So
seekers.
that you
This-
don't know
immigrants,
that.
not
These
asylum
tiresome
seekers.
lies that
They
come
can
from
be
the left
trained.
They're not
drive me
asylum
mad,
seekers,
Patrick, because
They can
it's
be
like they
trained.
read from a script.
I'm
this
not
nonsense.
reading from a script.
There are no asylum seekers.
They're not scientists, they're not doctors, and they're not engineers.
You don't know that.
Yeah,
You
they're
do.
immigrants. They're not
Oh.
asylum seekers.
They're the
Asylum
same
seekers
thing.
can't work. They're not the same thing.
All I will say on
Let's
this...
bring back the word refugee.
All I will say
not refugees.
is that of the, let's be honest, it was 99% men that I've met on my 2 journeys over there. I would be amazed if it turned out that any of the ones I've spoken to knew how to operate on someone's brain. But anyway, Border Security Minister Dame Angela Eagle said that the government will continue working with local authorities and communities to address legitimate concerns, and work continues to close all asylum hotels by the end of this Parliament.